What is up, world? This is Kimberly and Connor Tracy over here at Big Red SEO in Omaha, Nebraska in November of 2019, in case you catch us in the future. We're tuning in for our tradition of a weekly recap. And today we've got a little bit of an agenda kind of conversation to have more in a casual standpoint. One, because we just came back from a fantastic wedding in a different country, right? So we've been traveling. My hair is super bushy. If you watch different videos, I think this is the longest it's been so far. So we were chatting, trying to figure out what value could we add to people. Maybe they are running a team together themselves. Maybe they have multiple balls that they're trying to juggle in their business and their operations. Maybe they're a husband and wife team, and it's a matter of, hey, how do I get one person to do something, and then for me to be able to do my part. So yeah.
How do you get a wedding to run on time?
Yeah. So the thought process is we wanted to come with you about doing hybrid tasks and setting deadlines, but they're, like Conor says, they're falsified deadlines, right? So Do you want to explain this? Because I was like, oh no, we don't do that. And then I was like, oh yes, we do that. I do that. He does it. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to describe to everybody what this is.
So every 4 weeks, we do a hyper focus on a particular item. Mm-hmm. And this week, we're doing basically the method of getting work done. So, and using false deadlines or fake lying to each other about what we're doing.
That word makes me feel so naughty. I'm
lying does.
Oh,
but essentially, over the years, and not only just with us, but a lot of small business owners in general perform a lot better under stressful situations.
Yeah, under pressure.
Either under pressure or under a deadline. I've got to get this done. And sometimes they kick out the best work possible.
Best work.
And we do that.
Yeah.
Other
times, just to clarify, from our projects and clients, some clients do really well. And other clients have a meltdown. So it's not, we have to discern who is willing and who communicates that way.
Sure.
And then if we push them and we push them too hard, we do come over and give them a little bit of love and break it down a little bit more and help them feel a little. I remember a couple times they were like, screw it, I don't want to do any of it. But the thought process of that is also the individuals are stepping forward in their business, right? So website design and SEO marketing, it's a process, if that makes sense. And so somebody has to learn how to articulate what's their voice, what are they doing, how are they going about it, right? And sometimes it can be uncomfortable coming up with that and then having the deadline. Other clients thrive off of it, and they've never known that they actually perform really well under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tilt that just slightly your direction?
My
direction? Yeah, just turn it that way. There you go.
Is that my direction on the video? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I got more light on me, guys. I got more light on me.
So essentially, anyway, at the end of the day, the way we generally operate better under a deadline. So we'll often set deadlines for each other where we know it's not the real deadline. I've got a deadline. Today's Friday. I've got a deadline of stuff that I need to have done today.
Yeah.
It's really not due until Monday afternoon.
Or Tuesday.
Or on Tuesday. But today is my deadline to have it done. That way then I'm not stressed about that part on Monday.
Yeah.
And there are some things that I do for myself where I'll self-impose a deadline on my own stuff.
Right.
We do that from a sales end of things. We do that from quoting different jobs and things like that, where we'll self-impose a deadline. This has to be out by 3:00. Really, does it have to be out by 3:00? Probably not. 4:00 is probably okay, but we'll self-impose that 3:00 deadline and make sure the stuff actually gets out on time, making sure that it actually gets done.
Right.
So, the last couple of weeks I've been talking about. Kim's laughing.
I'm over here.
Kim has no idea where I'm going with this part.
Oh God. I don't know if I want to know. I have a side little squirrel. When we were traveling, we actually took one of his old laptops. It was a touchscreen laptop, right? So you guys have to imagine our plan is in 2020 to travel more. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Love that you're here. Our plan is to travel more in 2020. So we were testing out this old laptop that he had that didn't have any data. So nonchalant, we don't hope that things get stolen or we lose things.
We don't hope that at all.
We don't hope that at all. However, if it did happen, we don't want any information on the device, right? So we had a device that was clean and clear and we were using it to test it out during this travel.
And the only thing on this was a Chrome browser. And
that was it.
Login,
and you had to have the username passcode to get in or whatever. Anyway, the keyboard on this device compared to my keyboard shifted off to the right a little bit. And every time I would type, I would like mess myself up, like misspelling words, and I would get frustrated. And then after like an hour and a half, I got used to the keyboard and I was good to go by the weekend. Well, you guys could probably catch it as you rewatch. If you rewatch, I was typing on my usual laptop today and everything is off to the left. And I actually felt frustration because I was like, my keyboard's not off to the right, right? So that's what I was giggling about. So you know what I was giggling about? So whenever you change technology, things move and shift, right? And I was like, I keep spelling the wrong thing.
Well, that's business 101. I mean, everything is going to be constantly shifting and everything's going to constantly change. But
so the blind side, Kim is going to be surprised by what?
Surprised. So the last 2 weeks, I've been talking about neural pathways, and
he has. It's fascinating.
I don't know why, but that stuff
in the brain, right?
Yeah,
because we talk about that a lot in the spiritual world. But anyway, carry on.
So like the synapses and stuff like that.
Yeah,
basically how your brain processes certain information.
Look at my pretty color. Hey, squirrel. Neural pathway. I just neural pathwayed you.
You just set the volume spike way up here. Now I've got to go back and edit. It's okay.
People can't.
This is Kim throwing a spanner in the works.
People can't handle my volume. It's okay.
So anyway, so been talking about neural pathways and how different things people interpret different things.
Right.
How the BERT algorithm is working with Google, and that's using linguistics patterns, things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things when it comes to setting these fake deadlines, it actually releases
serotonin.
Dopamine.
Ooh.
Okay. So the dopamine, it's again another chemical reaction, both in the body and in the brain cells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things, and I've got a note over here. So you're going to see me looking there. I cheated.
I did see that. He stuck it to our little cool background.
I did. So I operate on the reward system. Okay, so everything I do, I want to see a reward out of it.
Yeah.
The SEO world is that way, that we want to see, the progress and that reward.
Yeah.
So dopamine plays a big part in that. So it regulates attention, it regulates the learning ability, the timing within all of that.
Yeah.
And then it also regulates emotions.
Okay.
So that's what the dopamine release actually does. So it ties directly into that pleasure, satisfaction end of things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So because I work in that deadline world, it's the accomplishment of getting something done. Now, you do something similar.
I did not know this part was coming, y'all. You're about to see me go really red.
But you do. You thrive on the accomplishment end of things, the reward system. And by that, your to-do list.
Oh yeah.
Kim makes.
I'm totally with you now.
Yeah, you will make a to-do list just so that you can scratch off.
Yes.
I made a to-do list.
Yes, that's my law of order. Law of order.
But all of that ties back into the dopamine effect, and just.
I think where my dopamine effect gets really triggered in that whole process is I not only cross it off, I highlight it.
Right.
That's my dopamine.
If Kim had stickers, she'd put stickers all over it too.
Sometimes I really like highlight color.
You put hearts beside them.
Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily stickers.
It's the same.
That's like actually doodling. Loveline would know. If she's going to tune in, Loveline would know about the doodle difference between a doodle and a sticker. There's a difference. For me, anyway. I do know some people. I saw somebody this last weekend that love stickers. It was adorable watching her sticker everything that she owned in all different places and things.
Oh, you were talking about that.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was like, oh my gosh, she's totally rocking a lot of different stickers in all different ways. Now, when I was little, I did collect stickers. Side note that you guys know. And I would count them every single day. That was my actual ninja meditation as a little kid that I did not know about. I had over 10,000, 20,000 stickers and I count them every Woo sawed that kid down. Woo sawed that kid down.
Yeah.
But dopamine for me, getting the hit would be, I like to write it down, law of order. So I have an overall to-do list. I have a daily list, and then I mark them off, and then I highlight them. So the highlight is my reward. And it's usually different colors, depending on the day. Depending on the day. I used to, before talk about a reward, when we first started the business, because we ran the shop by ourselves, but we were also, I was trying to learn how to run a business and then learning all the ins and outs. And then so sometimes it would be challenging for me to get my gears going because it would feel like it was so overwhelming based on all the things that we had to do. So I would go to the grocery store, and do you remember, or the store, I bought 4 different nail polish colors. And every time I got a task completely done, I would do a swipe of nail color. And then so my nails by the end of the day were like all different colors, and they were all like wicked cool and all that jazz. I don't know why I stopped doing that. That was my dopamine hit too. That was my reward. So that was before I learned the highlighter thing.
And in doing that, she took time away from what she could have been doing, which is more work.
Well, I mean, in theory, I painted my nails and I worked and I typed, because when you type, you don't touch the top of your nail.
Right, but don't you have to sit there and say, "Oh, I've got to let them dry," and I'll sit here for 2 minutes.
I would do a swipe.
Scroll Facebook.
I didn't care if it was like perfect or if it got dented. I would do a swipe and then I would go right back into work, and then a swipe and right back into work. And by the time I got the task done, that swipe was dry, essentially.
All right.
Yeah, super wicked cool.
There you go. That's all I have to talk about.
So the reason why
Bye.
The reason why we create internal deadlines that are different for each other is that we both work in different buckets, and then we also work together in specific buckets. So we have specific projects where we're working together, and then we have our own individual tasks that we do separate. And they actually rely quite a lot on each other, if that makes sense. So he's scheduled and then I'm scheduled. However, there's like this area of whenever you get into the work specifically, at least for us, like I'll use you as an example, when you go into code or troubleshoot a code, you sometimes don't know if it's going to take you 5 minutes or it's going to take you 4 hours or if it's going to take you 3 days, right? Sometimes depending on how sticky it is, it can just throw the entire schedule off. Well, one of the ways that I got kind of like push him, not less push, but yeah, gently push him to get him through that area is he'll be in code and it'll just be like a rat's nest. And then he finally gets the solution and he's somewhat exhausted. I have him go off, take a break, come back. And then I actually have to apply pressure on him for that next task to say a deadline, which is the fibbed deadline specifically. So he has that ownership of, I've got the accountability. I got to get this done within this time frame. If not, he kind of goes into that lackadaisy, which is normal for programmers, right? Programmers are usually, they're in the crunch when they're in it, and then they're kind of like laid back and mellow. And if you ask a programmer who doesn't really have sales or business management how long something's going to take them, they'll probably say it'll take 24 hours and it'll take 4 years. That's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah, we like to think we can get things done a lot quicker than we can.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, programmers inherently are awesome procrastinators. And at the same time, not really having a scheduled to-do list of things.
Yeah.
But they're more things that come up and then you go ahead and you take care of it.
Right.
So in that end, like if you're troubleshooting or you're bug tracking or something like that,
right,
and something causes a problem over here and you notice it's something else over here, you'll go ahead and start on that next piece.
Yeah.
Just so that the whole thing works as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm very guilty of that. You know, I'll work on a website and I'll go down the path of the mobile compatibility end of things, but that set is not supposed to happen until next week.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to still be working on optimized CSS code, make sure that the layouts and the flows and the plugins and the sliders and everything else are working.
It's almost like he sometimes squirrels, but he squirrels hard to the left, right? Oh, yeah. And then so we have this task where it says these are the things, but also it's because for designers, and maybe I don't know, maybe your guys' industry is kind of somewhat similar. Whenever I coach clients, it's kind of one of those, they're doing the work and then they're bringing new sales in, right? Like there's two different facets of their business and there's multiple different hats that they have to wear. If you stay in one hat for too long, then what can happen is you can, we don't always want to say burnout. It's not necessarily burnout, but you can just get exhausted, right? Like you can immensely, physically, emotionally get super exhausted. So it's important to kind of like flip the switch, and then the pressure of the deadline just kind of adds that extra push to get things done, if that makes sense. Some people are not driven by deadlines. Some people in industries don't have to worry about deadlines at all, right?
Right. Well, most graphic designers, programmers, photographers,
Yeah.
the creatives,
Yeah.
most of them that I know, they'll start on one thing, they'll see something else that they want to do. So
Right.
there's the want to do and I have to do.
Right.
And they're two very different columns. But if I'm offloading images off of a camera and I see something, I'm like, oh, if I just do a little tweak here, I can get the sun to do this and make this part a little bit brighter.
You go down the rabbit hole with that good old stuff.
An hour and a half later,
it's just
I've been working on something that I wanted to do, that I wanted to see what would happen if, what if I change this part? What if I make this modification rather than the I have to do? And that's where setting those either interstitial deadlines, or setting a hard deadline that has to be done by this date, and maybe that date is 2, 3, or even a week ahead of time.
Yeah.
We used to do programming of websites where it would take 8 weeks to do a website.
Yeah.
It doesn't take 8 weeks to do a website.
Yeah.
But by the time everything goes back and forth and you get content back and forth and images and so forth, that timeline starts to stretch out. So there has to be that.
Especially if there's like different strategies. So like by the time you actually build the website design specifically, it may not take that long. But then by the time you stretch it out. But I think like in the core of things though, you do need to make sure that you are organized. So if you do not have organization, you're going to be in chaos. And sometimes what happens in chaos is you kind of start to get confused and you're not really sure what happens and what not. I actually had a meeting with a client today, and it was a matter of what is the priority? What's the thing that would help provide you relief immediately if you got that completed and you got that done, right? The other part too is this last former weekend, I actually was in California at a retreat that my coach ran for some of her VIP clients. And it was genius. What she said was, you control the creativity. Don't let the creativity control you. So like you were talking about, like if you get creative ideas, like you're doing something, you get creative ideas, you go over here and you play for a little bit. And then before you're off in a rabbit hole, a deep hill, and then you've got multiple different creative ideas, you're actually being taken away from your priority of what it is you're meant to work on right here and right now. Because the reality is there is a difference between what you need, what you feel you need, and what you have to have. And in running a business, there is going to be something that needs to be done, whether it's delivered to the client so you can get paid, or there's going to be some scenarios that you have to get these things done. And then the one thing that I used to find that I would trick my brain, so hopefully this provides guidance for you. I would actually apply an unnecessary amount of pressure because I would create an expectation of a different deadline than what the true deadline was. So like whenever I used to create the big to-do lists, I used to not chunk them into that day. And instead I would try to roll off of that big to-do list, which was actually 3 or 4 months worth of to-do tasks, guys. And then I would be like, why am I so stressed out right now? Like what? And I would go and I would poke him and be like, hey, what are you working on? Hey, what are you working on? Hey, what are you working on? Because I was trying to scratch things off that main huge to-do. I could actually, I gotta cut cords. I can feel it right now. Woo! I could feel the like tension of trying to do all the things all at once, right? And then that's whenever I learned that if I did a to-do list, I would break it off into what can get accomplished today. So that's an important thing. What can get accomplished today? Because if we've got multiple clients back up, we create white space in our days, right? So white space means we have things scheduled, but white space is it's clean. So if somebody calls or they need something, right? And it also creates white space. So say that we're really deep into a project and we're like, man, I just need to step away for a little bit. That white space allows us to actually step away for ourselves individually or together, if that makes sense. But I think as you run the business and you're juggling multiple hats, right, you do need to figure out what works for you, what works for your environment. And then what's that thing, what's that element that kind of stretches you a little bit further outside your comfort zone? Because one of the things that could potentially like just have you lose the light and fun out of your business is if you just go mediocre and it's just like going through the motions and going through the steps and going through the processes. I know for you, you get really tired when it's like that. If he's got the same projects over and over and over, and it's the same scenario and same tasks over and over and over, you kind of like get a little dim and you're like,
I have to have that creative, whatever it is. Even when I was doing the web hosting end of things, it was troubleshooting for the most part. A ticket would come in, I'd work through the problem, I'd figure out the solution, I'd close the ticket, and off we go. Having that was a big part of how I operated.
Right.
And all of those were, again, self-imposed deadlines. A ticket must be responded to within 20 minutes. You must have everything resolved or moved up the chain within a half hour of that.
Yeah.
Get it to the next level of admin, whether that's me internally, I'm going from a level 1 to a level 2 support person, even though I'm the same person. It's a different switch in the brain when you go into that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think for us, like, deadlines work in our environment, right? Mm-hmm. We do also have projects where there's less deadlines. So we have some clients that are like, hey, if you can get to it in 6 months, that's super cool. If you can get to it next week, awesome. In our business model, we actually create whitespace, and then we actually create a VIP priority list where people will go on a waiting list for a project. And if we get something done, they actually get first dibs for their project to start quicker and earlier. So we have scheduled out slots of here's the projects that we're working on. And oh, by the way, if we get this stuff done, then we actually start a different project earlier, which winds up being a surprise. And people get really super excited. Like we say, we can't promise that we'll start it, but let's see what we can do. And then that's kind of like a challenge accepted for me and Conor, because we're like, ooh, could we get it done? Like, could we possibly get this done?
And it's getting it done right are very different.
Very, very different things.
But I live from Gantt charts, and I like that whole process. But as Kim said, she looked at just an entire list of 2-3 months of here's all the things you've got to do, and then it becomes meltdown in my office of I'm never going to get all these done. Well, but if you break it into those little chunks, those little milestones, and then set those self-imposed deadlines. Yeah, that
was definitely the old Kim. I remember those days, and it was super, super intense. Right. The other part too, and again, this might be more.
I can't do anything. I've got to go to the store and buy sticky notes so I can write down what it is I need to do.
Write down all the things.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't.
I think the other part too. So whether you're a married couple or you're just working side by somebody else, it's really important to say that even if you perform under pressure or somebody else does. The thing that helped us, not just in our marriage, but working together is it's not the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. It's the platinum rule, which is treat others the way they want to be treated. So Conor has a specific way that he likes to be communicated to, as well as how he likes projects to be articulated to him. So I wrap myself and mold myself around him to ensure that he can actually work under his best performance. And he also knows what works for me and what doesn't work for me, right? And so it's the honoring and meshing the two in addition to the deadlines. So like I think that the fibbed deadlines or creating it, like deep down inside, we always know. We're like, okay, is it really due today or is it due next week? Rarely do we actually say that out loud. We just know, okay, this other person needs this and there's a pressure to it. It's going to make them feel comfortable if we take action on it now, get the circle closed, get it moved down the pathway. Let's go. Let's get this done. And then other days, we actually have days where we're like, how many circles can we get closed today? And it actually creates more space for us. So we're probably speaking different language to you guys than you probably ever thought possible. But as we were traveling, we were like, what could we possibly give them from a just a hybrid focused strategy of what works internally? And these are some of the elements that do. So I think we had a comment in here.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
We have love not letting creativity rule you. Gotta run. We'll come back and watch the replay later.
Perfect.
And then what else is in here? How have I never heard of the platinum rule? Totally brilliant.
Is it not cool? It is super cool. I think I actually heard that rule. I'm not sure who wrote it. I heard it probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is genius. That's actually, I don't know if you remember the shift in our business, but I actually started treating our clients the way that they preferred to be treated. And a lot of people communicate non-verbally as well as verbally, right? So like if their emails in their language would be shifted to a specific style, then I would shift mine to that specific style and kind of like morph in.
Yeah, and even, we were doing sales prospecting there 2 weeks ago, and the person sent an email and said, here it is. And the way it was set up, it was one line intro, one line of what it is they needed,
Yeah.
and one line for
It
close.
was what was that called? Ask me why there's 3 sentences or less in the email. So I don't know what theory that is. I've heard of it before, but go ahead. It's the boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's basically those 3 sets. So the response then that happened was done in 3 also.
That was really hard for me. I had to have Conor draft it over and over and over. It was hard for me to get my down to 3 sentences or less.
So Mark Twain, and it's a quote I refer back to on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Mark Twain wrote in a letter, I'm sorry I didn't have that much time to write a letter, so I wrote this. And it's a 2-page letter. Sorry that I didn't have time to write a short note.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time to be able to write a short, concise, this is what it is.
It does.
Rather than just throw it all out there on a page. But anyways, so I think we went slightly off track on everything.
Just a little bit. I mean, hopefully that provides value for you guys, right? So like the thought process is you always want to keep your business going forward. From an overall business, it's important for you to work in the business as well as on the business, right? And so just test out to see like what feels good. Like if you were able to add just a little bit more pressure on, maybe it's more structure of this is when it's due and this is how it needs to be done. What I can tell you is if you get to the part where you're a little bit organized and you have more discipline and structure around things, like I was just talking to a client today about theme days, right? Like she does specific things on specific areas. But then also being able to be a little bit flexible that if your day kind of goes to the wayside, okay, cool. What ways can you build that back in? And that actually might provide you the space to apply a little pressure onto that. But we wanted to bring this specific topic to you guys because it is unique based on every individual industry. For us, it's thrived and it's worked quite well. And it's kind of one of the reasons we contribute to our success that we've had is like that whole fib deadline. Although I don't like the fib or the lie, but it is true.
So
I mean, I
didn't
can't
call
decline
it fib. I called it
it's so true.
What did I call it?
True.
I don't even know what I call the image anymore.
I don't know, but it does. It does work. It does work in us being able to tango. Yeah. So hopefully you guys got value. We will see you next Friday for our Facebook Live. In the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful weekend. I think we're like 2 weeks out to Thanksgiving week. I don't know. We'll see. I know. Connor's like, oh my gosh, it's the month of Thanksgiving.
Deadlines have striked up again.
Yeah, deadlines. But anyway, have a great week and we will chat to you guys later. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Have a great day now. Thank you. See, there you go. Creating false deadlines. All right, guys. Have a great day.